Hey class, so we're working on essay 2, which is going to be our counter argument essay. Make sure you're referring to our syllabus and to our modules to make sure you review what the due dates are for everything. But overall, this is going to be an essay centered on needing a huge counter argument, right? So, overview. When you write an academic essay, you make an argument. You propose a thesis and offer some reasoning using evidence that suggests why the thesis is true. When you counter argue, you consider a possible argument against your thesis or some aspect of your reasoning. This is a good way to test your ideas when drafting while you still have time to revise them. And in the finished essay, it can be a persuasive and, in both senses of the word, disarming tactic, right? To have a counter argument. It allows you to anticipate doubts and preempt objections that a skeptical reader might have. It presents you as the kind of person who weighs alternatives, right? So it looks like you're someone who's considering all the different perspectives because we don't live in a vacuum. The reality is every single argument has multiple perspectives, multiple voices, right? And we're always just kind of entering into those arguments with our own experiences and perspectives in mind, predominantly, right? So having a counter-argument essay, you're having to think about all those different perspectives. So the specifics for this assignment is you're going to have to write 1,600 to 2,000 words, where you're going to argue a topic of your choice, right, and present an opposition or counter-argument, which is a skill that is essential to a good argument overall, right? And then as an added twist, you need to directly refute the counter argument, aka the rebuttal. So you're gonna have your core argument, a counter argument, and then a rebuttal. So for this essay, you also are going to need 3 outside sources. And I prefer that you try to use our library database at first because you're wanting scholarly peer-reviewed sources. You're wanting strong sources, not just, random Google sources. And so that is something you really want to think about. But essentially, you're going to have, right, an argument, a counter-argument, a rebuttal, right? And you have to research, draft and revise, and submit, right? So understanding your audience, this is also a key thing you have to think about, right? So once you have a chosen topic, select a specific audience that you would like to address. And this audience is one that is probably a naysayer. It's the person, it's that uncle who has a different perspective from you, right? It's that family member who you're always in a tisk with, right? That's the person you're addressing this topic to, right? That person who doesn't typically agree with you. And if you come out the gate swinging, right, it doesn't usually work. So how can we get those people who are both frustrating, right, but also just have a different view from us to maybe come into our camp and see our perspective? So this is something you have to think about, right? With like the language you're choosing, how you're constructing your argument. It has to be very careful, right? And you have to think about all the things that they might bring up as a counter to you. And that's what you can use in your counter argument, right? What are those points that that other perspective would use? And then you're going to refute it, right? So you're going to start out with your perspective, bring in their perspective, and then refute their perspective, coming full circle back to your perspective. However, you have to do it all gently, right? So some potential topics to consider are the effects of Me Too movement on political figures, effects of social media on people, government, elections, restrictions on gun control, links between energy and climate change, the nation's attitude towards immigrants, immigration policies, or maybe a link between mental illness and homelessness. You aren't stuck to these topics, so, you can veer off, but if you're unsure or you feel like it's not super clear, like what you're wanting to argue, please email me ASAP so that we can make sure that you have a strong topic that is arguable, that's going to have, multiple perspectives. We don't want to argue that the world is flat, right, or round, right? Like both have very clear factual, there's not opinions in that, right? Because the world is round. It's not flat. So sorry for conspiracy theorists. But, you want to make sure that you're choosing a topic that really does have a lot of differing perspectives and a lot of opinions surrounding it. So requirements: craft an enticing and relevant title, not just essay 2, we should know this now. Have a clear, well-developed, thought-provoking thesis, right? You want to make sure that it is super clear what your thesis is, and if you're unsure how to construct the thesis or you struggled with that in your first essay, review our thesis support in our modules. Present a clear argument with solid support, a counter-argument, and a rebuttal. Write in an appropriate college tone, third person, no colloquial language, meaning no I, me, my, and no you, yours in this essay, as well as no slang or informal writing. Supply evidence. You need to have at least 3 strong, solid, credible sources. No blogs, no Wikipedia, avoid .coms. I would even avoid .orgs. So kind of, it is looking for strong sources to support your ideas. Clearly introduce and analyze all quoted and paraphrased material. We don't want to accidentally, include something or suggest that it's ours. Even if it's just a simple according to Smith, blah, that integrates the source and it shows where it's coming from. Be sure your introductory sentences transition smoothly and introduce your ideas. Each paragraph needs a topic sentence that introduces the whole idea. Think of it as that mini thesis statement. That topic sentence is promising everything that comes after it, right? Adhere to MLA format. Your essay needs to be 1,600 to 2,000 words, so make sure you're choosing strong sources so that you can really expand on these topics. You're going to include a works cited that includes these sources, and you're going to submit your paper via Canvas. If you have any questions as you're working on this, please feel free to reach out to me. Similar to Essay 1, you absolutely can get the extra credit if you're going to the Learning Center or using NetTutor, so make sure you're using your resources. We're here to support you. I'm here to support you. And there absolutely are resources available. Okay.